Batman gets animated in a 6-scale size. Here's your look at the Mondo Batman the Animated Series Reissue Batman 1/6 scale figure. Based on the seminal Batman the Animated Series, the Batman 1/6 scale stays true to the animated classic, sculpted match the iconic style of the show, and with a paint scheme evoking the bold graphic look of an animated cell, featuring approximately 30 points of articulation, multiple switch-out hands, heads, accessories, and a bat symbol display stand, Batman comes fully equipped to keep Gotham and your collection safe and sound. First, before we look at bats, I'd like to thank the folks over at Mondo, who did make this review possible by sending over this early sample of the reissue Batman from the animated series we could have a look at in this review. Now, the slated release date for this is the first quarter of 2023. Many of the online sites that have them have currently sold out, so you may want to try to track one down if you wanted to add one to your collection, not having had the chance to get the original. Grabbing now the tape measure, we're going to measure it right to the very top of Batman's head. Factoring, of course, his ears of his cowl, gives us a figure that's about 11.5 inches in height, or it's about 29 centimeters tall. To come included with the Cape Crusader, you do get yourself an oval-shaped display stand with a familiar bat logo on the top. The logo itself, hopefully you can see, has actually been sculpted into the base. They haven't simply just reused an oval-shaped stand and painted only the necessary black bat on top of it. And then continued from the black bat is a black display stand. When it comes actually out of the box, it comes as two pieces. You'll see there's a slot there in the top. And actually, they've sized it in just the right way that the actual neck of the stand doesn't stick further out from the bat ears. You can see it's the exact same width, really. And once that's plugged in place, of course, then you can take your Batman figure. This does come up, of course, as well. You can take your Batman figure and just put him on top of the display stand. The cradle, of course, holds Batman quite well. And of course, as well, being the fact that the figure has as much articulation as he does, a display stand certainly will come in handy to display him, to prevent the figure from, of course, falling over. I did get the chance to have a look at the first edition Batman Animated Series figure that Mondo had released years before, but unfortunately, over those years, I have parted ways with the figure. In fact, I actually gave it to a really close friend of mine that was a huge Batman Animated Series fan. For that reason, and that reason alone, is why I can't bring in that other figure right now for comparisons, nor can I show you the difference of the accessories. What I can only do is show you the reissue version of Batman, and encourage, if you have a little bit of time on your hands, to go back and watch my first review I did of this figure. One thing that was different, though, about the first edition Batman is that Mondo had provided the deluxe version of that figure that came also included with the fanned-out cape. Something, as you can already see, doesn't come included with this release. But still, we'll have a look at the rest of the accessories that come included with this Batman. And again, if you guys are interested, definitely check this one out online, as the pre-order right now is circulating around various online sites for a first quarter release of 2023. Let's go ahead and look at some of the slightly smaller accessories, first of which identical batarangs. They're molded, in this case, in black plastic. There's nothing necessarily differentiating one from the other. They are the exact same batarang, provided you can actually see them. Yeah, they're all molded here in black plastic. Fine little batarangs. Not something I'm likely going to be displaying with Batman, but I always love that they throw in as many things as they do with these figures. If you prefer, though, your batarangs to be slightly larger, then you get these two variations of batarang here. They are different from one another. They're not the exact same. As you can see, that this one does have tiny little fanged points on the bottom, whereas this one just has the smooth, more half circle shapes down below. Again, they're identically colored, at least molded in the same black plastic. And again, they're the exact same on both the sides. I'm probably leaning a little more to the idea of displaying him with one of these, I think, honestly. The figure also comes included, speaking of small, he also comes included with a little spray canister. Now, there is a button on the top. I would have to go and reference an episode of Batman Animated Series where he actually does use something like this. But I think they probably could have maybe gone and painted this red. whether it was supposed to be red in the cartoon or not, just something to break up all the black plastic that they ended up using. But like I said, you do get yourself a tiny little spray canister. None of the accessories, by the way, for obvious reasons, don't fit into any of the compartments on his utility belt. It's just a molded utility belt. Sort of be the bearer of bad news on that. The figure also comes included with a tape deck. I believe there was one episode where he actually pulls out the reel of tape and uses it actually to kind of bring across like a bomb or an acid to blow up inside of a safe. Memory serves me correctly. I don't think it's necessarily that, but still, you got yourself a nice little tape deck, gray on the inside where the tape is, and then of course the buttons are there on the top. Nothing is necessarily marked, but still at least it's a different color from the otherwise black that they use for the majority of the canister, of the majority of the tape deck. Let's move that to the side. The figure also comes included with, let's look at his grapple line next. He comes with his grapple gun, and as you can see, they've also painted, in this case, the hook inside the grapple gun, and pleasantly surprised to see as well. Not surprised, but happy to see, at least, that they painted the button on the top here red. One thing I did notice, though, about my grapple gun is when I took it out of the packaging, it had two halves to it. I don't think it's supposed to be like this. It came out of the packaging complete, what you're seeing right now. But when I went to put it in Batman's hand, the two parts detached, or two parts came apart like this. I probably could easily just add a little bit of glue and just put those two together, and I'm sure it'd be none the wiser. Nobody would ever know that this ever came apart like this. Again, I don't think it's supposed to be like this. It serves no real reason why the two would have to detach like this. It probably just was the way it had to be assembled. They probably made two different molds, and then they just attached the two in the factory. Now, this obviously can fit into his hands. I say obviously, but the figure also comes included with specially dedicated hands for holding the grapple gun. He comes with these hands right here. That really, aside from holding the grapple gun, I can't imagine what other things they would be designed for. He notably has a little section split in the middle there between his fingers that you then take the grapple gun, making sure, of course, the button is on the top, and that just fits in between the fingers so that the thumb rests across the top of the actual button. That looks pretty cool. Now, that's for this side of the figure's body. Just don't worry, though. There is also a hand to go on this side, so you can have the grapple gun on either side of his body. If you, though, prefer to have your grapple gun actually firing something, well, they actually did also include a grapple gun with an actual firing line. Not actual in the sense that it does shoot out, but it does have a wire that you can stretch out, and it looks as if Batman did shoot the line out, complete with extended or fully retracted claw on the very end. Likely, it's probably been molded here in the gray plastic. I don't think it's been likely painted, but you can see it does have a wire frame. I mean, obviously, you're going to want to probably bend it in such a way. It's pretty long, so it's going to be draping down. So maybe what you could do is have a little bit of fun and maybe wrap this around Batman's arm or his body and look as if he's shooting out the line. A nice little touch to see that they could have included. I mean, technically, what they could have also done, too, speaking for the fact that this one did detach like this, they really could have also had this part as, like, this part right here could have been separate and kept the handle the exact same use for both. Obviously, that would be a smaller thing and more likely to be lost, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they just decided to have two distinctly sculpted grapple guns. At least that's my guess. Put those to the side. Also move the line out of the way. The lines, now that I've stretched it out, is going to be sticking out all over the place. Moving on to the rest of the accessories that come included with Batman, he comes also included with a bunch of swappable hands. Some of these hands are definitely more dedicated to one accessory over the other. Like, these hands are good for holding, like, the Batarang, for example. And he holds it pretty good, too. Like, you could tilt it upside down. Mostly, the Batarang isn't going to fall out of his hand. If you get it far enough in there, you can actually tilt the hand upside down. And the Batarang should usually stay in there. There's enough of a little slot on the inside of his hand that holds properly the Batarang. Even if you don't tilt it upside down or not, Batman will be fine to really hold the Batarang in his hands. And of course, he also comes with another hand for holding that too. Now, this hand also could be also well for holding the gas canister, like that. Now, this one only has the deepness going so far. It stops right around here with the three fingers. So maybe like this one isn't best for holding, like for holding the spray canister. You may, in fact, maybe want to have, well, like for example, this hand here. This hand goes all the way straight through from the top to the bottom. And this one do a better job, I think, definitely of holding the spray canister. For most of these accessories, honestly, even though Mondo did include all of them, I mean, there's so many things nods to at least the episodes of the animated series. I don't think I'm ever going to probably use most of the accessories that come included with Batman. I mean, some of the, I can already look at the ones I know I'm probably going to be displaying with Batman, like the grapple gun, like the Batarang. various different batarangs I might end up displaying with the figure. Things like, for example, the spray canister, likely no. Things like, for example, the tape recorder, the tape deck, likely no. But again, I like the idea that companies like Mondo always throw in as many accessories as they do. One last thing, just to give a thumbs up, Batman also comes included with the hand that has the thumb up. One of the constant memes we always see online of Batman with his thumb up, usually it's always like congratulating somebody, job well done. There's always that picture that somebody ends up using online with Batman with his thumb up. And he does include, of course, a figure does include the hand that has that. Other thing that the figure also comes included with is the folded down cowl. Now, obviously, it doesn't serve much of a purpose right now because Batman does have the cowl on. But Batman also does come included with the Bruce Wayne head sculpt, which is this one right here. His seam's generally ticked off by the way he's got his brows so low down like this. The paint is nicely done in all of the cases. You can see the panel lining done to the side of his cheeks. One only single line representing his lips, but a well-painted head nonetheless. Now, obviously, to display this with Batman, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We're going to take the head off that comes included with the figure right. Now, this is this stock head sculpt. Just a general neutral expression for Batman, which is fine for a character like Batman. I think I'd be probably leaning either to displaying him with this or maybe with the smile face that we'll look at in a moment. But for the purpose of showing you guys what it looks like with the Bruce Wayne head, just easily pop it off the ball socket. In this case, it's actually a dumbbell ball joint. So you got a ball joint at the top, ball joint at the bottom in the sections of the neck, recess section. And then just actually before you put the Bruce Wayne head on, you're going to want to take this cowl piece and flip it around and just have it drooping down like this, or have it laying over his shoulders, and then go ahead and just attach the Batman head. Now for me, as good as that does look, will I ever decide to display a Batman here like this with the Bruce Wayne head? Unlikely, but I love the idea that they would have included it in the first place. Maybe, though, while he's actually looking like Bruce Wayne right now, we'll have a look at the rest of the heads. I mean, obviously, we already looked at this one. This is his default, more just neutral expression Batman face. Again, you've got some really great coloring used here on the side here to represent his cheeks. You've got, in this case, a little line only to represent his lips, his bottom lip. And there's just a little bit of shadow underneath the point of the cowl to show where his nose would be, obviously. Coloring is really good on this. You've got also, like in the cartoon, you've got the blue highlights there represented here on the sides of his ears. A little bit of blue also represented here on the top. I mean, obviously the debate is whether Batman actually has a blue cowl or he actually has a black cowl, and then blue just simply represents highlights. So a lot of times really that there's a lot of light hitting Batman's body, and you see a lot of blue on his outfit. But again, that could be more highlights, not necessarily that he's actually got a blue outfit. Anyways, though, it's a really good-looking head sculpt. And maybe while we're still sticking with this one, some of the other things that come included with Batman is it comes included with a gas mask. Now, while putting the gas mask on, it's actually best to do it while the head is off, because you can easily, instead of actually putting it from the top and then, I don't like really the idea of putting it across Batman's face, stretching it over his face where there's always the risk that it could start chipping off some of the glorious paint that Mondo put into the piece. Rather, though, I think it's a better idea to actually put it from the bottom. This, by the way, is an elastic strap. So all you do really is just attach it to the bottom of Batman's face and just stretch it up his face like this. And of course, just making sure that the elastic goes all the way around. And I think I may have I just detached it from the side. A little bit of glue there on the side. That was unfortunately, you can see like it's stretched across. If you pull it too tight, you'll pull it and do exactly what I just did. But he does have the gas mask on the front of his face. No harm necessarily. All I will really have to do, all it is just, it's looped here on the side of the gas mask. And really considering I would never display Batman with it anyways, I'm disappointed that that did come free like this, but it's certainly not broken. I just have to feed it back through that loop. Removing that though in the meantime, the figure also comes included with Bat Binoculars. I know I'm adding Bat to the front of that. It comes with a pair of binoculars, and that works the exact same way. Let's just, though, be careful with the elastic on this side. You can see the elastic stretches through those loops on both the sides the exact same way as the gas mask. Carefully, though, carefully doing it this time. You're going to slide this time down the front of his face. And even though this is a way to display Batman, lean more to the idea of just actually displaying him without all these things, but just like kind of, again, happy the fact that they would include as much as they did. You can see there's the red visor part of the binoculars on the front, some decent sculpting on the side. And again, you can see how the elastic strapped through and actually just went through these little loops on both the sides. So let's go ahead and remove that. As for the rest of the actual head sculpts that come included with Batman, now again, we've already looked at this one. He also comes with pretty much like the same head, but with just a smiling expression. Kind of like this one a lot too. paint is painted the exact same on both the cases. It kind of actually looks like this one has slightly longer eyes than this one right here. But the highlights seem to be in the same spots. Also, just on the bridge of his nose, you'll notice too, there's a little bit of blue also added there. And he's also got the blue down the sides of his ears. One other thing that Batman also comes included with is a more angrier expression. I almost would have maybe swapped, I don't know, I kind of like this one as well, like the grimaced face. He also comes included with the Hardac face, which we'll also look at more in a second as well. But I almost kind of feel like I would have liked to see Batman with kind of that surprised look on his face. You know, in that episode, for example, when Harvey becomes Two-Face and Batman says, "Harvey, no." I would have liked to have seen an expression on Batman's face included with this figure as well. So, like, if you want just, like, the neutral Batman heads, I'm going to see if I can grab all three of these here so you can see. Yeah, in the middle, you've got neutral expression face Batman. On the side, you've got smiling face Batman. And then on the other side, you've got, whoops, then on the other side, let's not drop Batman in the process. Then on the other side, just getting his feet a little bit straight there. I wasn't expecting that to happen. And then on the other side, of course, we've got the grimmest face Batman as well. As you'll already see as well, one of the problems with Batman is that he's very top heavy. His shoulders and torso being so much heavier than his ankles definitely would encourage using a display stand. I really wasn't surprised. I was surprised to see that he actually was going to fall over like that, as Batman seemed to be standing fine this whole time. While he's decapitated for right now, we'll have a look at the one other thing that Batman comes included with, and that's the head sculpt for Hardac. Now, Hardac is that episode where, of course, that robot is building all of those robot clones, and Batman being one of them. You can see that he's already revealed himself, that half of his face has been torn away, revealing sort of an endoskeleton face on the other side, with one large eye in red. It's a nice head sculpt, but again, I think I probably more lean to the idea of displaying him with maybe like this head sculpt, for example. And seeing as though, well, just to show you what he looks like with the Hardac head. Again, you're just going to go ahead and take the ball socket joint and just fit it over top of the dumbbell ball joint. And just add a little bit of pressure. You really don't have to apply that much at all to get Batman looking like Hardac. It actually seems like he's going to be standing fine. I don't know why he fell over like that when I put the Bruce Wayne head on there. But like his ankles aren't even, well, this one ankle is a little on the looser side. But it's just for the fact he's got such a big, broad torso like this. Accessories aside, let's get now a closer look at Batman. I have also chosen the Bat head sculpt that we're going to go with for the rest of this review, the smiling face, as hopefully Batman isn't going to be falling over anymore. Again, the big problem with this figure is just by his design alone. Batman in the cartoon always had a very broad upper torso and very narrow legs. And because he has also such small ankles on this 6-scale figure, you definitely will, I would definitely encourage you guys, if you are looking to pick this figure up for yourself, display him on the shelf with the display stand. It's there for a reason. Picking though up the figure, getting a closer look at it right now. We've already looked at the head sculpt, but one last time to see what the smiling face of Batman does look like on the suit. Boy, that's a fine looking head sculpt. And of course, he does have the head articulation all there present as well. One thing I did also want to mention, let's go involve and actually take and remove the head here. When I did remove it from the ball joint, this part right here, you'll notice the head covers over this. Now, moving this back and forth, I haven't had any issues with it thus far. I've only had the figure only for a short period of time and only had it out of the packaging for a couple of hours. But moving it back and forth, I wonder if over time it's going to start wearing away the paint that they've applied in the blue. I got to believe like the cape itself is molded in black plastic, so I don't think there's a lot of risk there. But with the highlight that they've added to the top of the neck here, wondering if moving the head back and forth as many times as when you're probably going to be displaying this guy on your shelf, if that is going to, in fact, start wearing away some of that blue paint. Like I said, it hasn't happened yet, but I could definitely see it happening down the road. But overall, a really fine-looking head sculpt for Batman, and, of course, when it goes to the rest of the body. When we had a look at the first edition Batman, I already had mentioned that he did have a fanned-out cape. He only has just the neutral cape down that only just drapes down his body. He's got some nice highlights of the blue. That's a continuation from his neck that stretches from shoulder to shoulder. It only tapers off a little bit to the side, and while the rest of the cape is just a solid plastic, I do like the way they've pointed the tips off here. I was surprised, really, that the cape, from what I don't remember, the original Batman also had this as well, a very heavy plastic cape. And that might be also one of the reasons that it adds to the weight of the figure falling backwards, because he has so much weight of the plastic of the cape behind him. The actual emblem sculpt, as you can see, is nicely painted. What you may not also be able to see is that they've sculpted it onto the torso. In other words, they simply just didn't print it onto his body. If you run your finger across it, you'll feel right away that the emblem is actually sculpted onto his body. because they could easily have just simply painted that on or printed it on, but they didn't do that. They actually sculpted it onto his body. Nice touch on their part. Utility belt is brightly done here in yellow. I thought I had maybe a little bit of a smudge here on the side. The paint is pretty brightly handled. I mean, I don't think necessarily I would say that it needs necessarily a second coat of paint. It's finely applied the way that they have. Little tiny little canisters, little tiny compartments, of course, that would store things like gas capsules. Nothing really believably be able to hold like a batarang or a grapple gun. I don't know where this Batman would actually store many of his accessories, but still he is a decently cartoon accurate utility belt. A little bit of blue highlight there on the side. He also has blue there also on both his arms and his hands. Any one of the hands that you swap out for, as you've already seen, have also the added little bit of blue that they've added that we'll put in there as well. Again, like the sculpting on the figure is really good from head to toe. There's nothing really I would have fixed to the figure at all. If anything, I would probably have said, I mean, he does have an ankle joint, and this side here is the looser of the two. I don't know if maybe down the road they could devise a different way of giving ankle articulation to these figures. When we do have a look, just to get a sneak peek for what we're going to be seeing in a future video, when we do have a look at the Joker, for example, he's got bigger feet. And he's got the joint looks to be working the exact same way. I don't think I'm going to have any real issues with the Joker. Batman, because he has a more tapered off ankle like this, and then relying on just a swivel hinge joint. I wonder if maybe like, see already right here, it's a little on the more looser side that you're adding already so much of the weight of the figure here on top of that. I think that ankle's going to not buckle necessarily, but again, all the more reason why using it with the display stand is the best idea. Definitely go with the display stand. Has a little bit also a panel lining added here for what represents his abdomen muscles. Nicely done there as well. And he's also got just a little bit, I want to say of shadowing, but actually it seems almost like the same color for the rest of his body. I think it's just the way the light actually is hitting. It looks, just by the way they've actually rounded off the sections here, that it looks like it's a little bit darker. It's probably just my eyes playing tricks on me. As for the articulation here for Batman, it's still the same as the original one we looked at before. The head is on a dumbbell ball joint, so it looks up. That's as far up, by the way, as you can get it. It can look down. Periodically, though, you may find myself, you might see me actually popping this back onto the ball joint. Sometimes moving the head too much, I notice it does pop off the ball joint, like right there, for example. But the head does look down that much. Of course, you can rotate it all the way around. And the head also does rock back and forth, too. Shoulders do come out, and despite for the fact he does actually have a cape, it doesn't seem to limit his arms being able to come out at almost a 90-degree angle bend. You take, again, those arms, you can rotate them somewhat all the way around, but you'll notice right away when it gets to this point, you can't bring the arms any further past that point. You probably could if you fight it. I really don't want to fight it, though. The figure does also have a rather interesting elbow joint. You can see there's a joint right there at the top and a joint right there in the middle and right at the bottom. And then dividing in the middle is actually a little bridge of plastic. He does actually have a double hinge on the elbow. It's a little on the more tighter side on this side. Let's actually do this side here because I know I've been bending that arm quite a lot more. The joint actually kind of does a nice job of giving him a seamless look to his arm. You can still obviously see there's a joint happening there, but it does a better job of cleanly finishing that. Like, it looks more like a finished arm. It doesn't look like it's broken up by obnoxious joints. He does have the joint there, but then while bending the elbow, it still gives you a very seamless looking arm. Really clever the way they've actually done the elbow joint there. And of course, then the hands also rotate all the way around. I didn't actually swap out any of the hands in this review. There goes the head, by the way. I didn't swap out any of the hands in this review. Going back to the hands. You pop the hands out, though, and while you do remove the hands, there we go, they actually remove along with their peg joint. That's the way you want to have it. Instead of actually having to worry about the joint coming out from time to time, each one of the hands, as you already saw earlier, have their own dedicated peg, and that just simply plugs into the arm socket like that. And again, you just rotate those all the way around. Upper torso, it looks so strange with Batman, no head. Upper torso is on a ball joint. The lower torso seems to be only on a straight swivel. Maybe there's a little bit of wiggle back and forth. There might be actually a ball joint working behind the belt there. So he does actually have a double ball joint. One at the top, one at the bottom. You move it all the way around. Legs do split, and they're actually on ratcheted joints. So give a nice tight joint to those legs. Bring the legs forward only by that much. You can also bring the legs back also that much. And they mildly swivel at the top of the thigh where those attach. The figure also has a double hinge on the knee. And again, it's kind of giving you a nice seamless look. I mean, obviously when you bend the knee, it's going to look a little strange, almost like his leg is rubbery. But at least I would rather that, at least, than having a very obvious joint that when you bend the knee, it cuts right into the leg. And you don't get that at all in this case. And then once again, we talked about the ankles already, but we'll talk about them again. He has a hinge joint, so like the ankles go back and forth this way, but you can also rock them back and forth this way. Between those two things, coupled also with the fact that he has so much weight on this decapitated body of his, it does make for a more top-heavy figure. You know what? It just seems so strange on a place that he doesn't have actually a head. Let's pop back in the neutral head sculpt. Yeah, I would definitely say a great-looking Batman figure. My only real qualms really with him isn't necessarily the sculpting of him. I think they've landed a perfect sculpt of Batman from the animated series. The only thing I would probably say, if anything, is just these ankles. Just because I don't want the figure falling over any more times. Let's bring it back in the display stand, get Batman back onto the stand. Now I have nothing to worry about. Yeah, I mean, just by the design, the nature of the beast, so to speak, when it comes to Batman's design from the animated series, he's naturally going to be a lot bigger with his V upper torso like this. And because he has such small, more skinnier legs, it does make for a little bit more of a top-heavy figure when it comes to displaying him on shelf. But, of course, Mondo did think of that when it came to displaying this guy, because, of course, they included a display stand with an adjustable neck. Certainly would say, if you are a big fan of Batman and have any interest whatsoever to pick up this figure, he's a great-looking figure on the shelf, but I would really highly recommend that if you do decide to pick him up, display him on the shelf at the display stand so that there's no risk whatsoever of the figure falling over on you. While we are also on the topic of Batman's display stand, there were actually two things I did want to point out here in final looks as the figure spins around. First, that the adjustable neck that Mondo included with the display stand for Batman is universal. In other words, it's not designed specifically for Batman's lower torso, so when you are getting the figure and you put him onto that cradle, don't feel the need to actually push him down into it, because you'll notice that the cradle isn't as wide as his lower body. His trunks actually seem a little thicker or a little wider, that he's not going to properly fit inside the cradle. Instead, rather, you'd want him really just to be resting against it. And believe you me, that's more than enough to keep the figure from falling over. The other thing is that Mondo added these rubber caps on all of their adjustable necks. It's to prevent any scratching on the surface of the plastic for these figures, but I've noticed already for Batman, the few times that I've actually put him down onto the cradle, that those little rubber caps have left not necessarily a scratch, but a little mark on his black trunks. I was able to at least rub it off, but you just want to, again, be careful when you're putting him down. Don't put him and force him down onto the cradle. Just resting him on it is more than enough. Now, when it comes to certainly displaying the figure, choosing for myself to display him either with the his grapple gun or his batarangs. But I mean, as all the other cases we've seen in the past, Mondo includes an abundance of accessories, more than you'll ever really need when it comes to displaying Batman. Things like, for example, his gas canister, his binoculars, his gas mask, which unfortunately in the case in this review did snap on me. But as you see, it easily just slots into that open loop on the side. I probably could just loop it back through and glue it back in place. I mean, for me, it's too good of a head sculpt to even really consider displaying it with the gas mask. But again, I always like when companies like Mondo throw in as many accessories as they do. Even if you're not even planning to use them, you never know that down the road, you may change your mind and you want to display Batman with the gas mask instead. Now, again, this figure is slated to release the first quarter of 2023. Many of the online sites are actually advertising this guy at June to March 2023 with a price point sitting at around $220. On average, what you would expect to pay with Mondo 6-scale figures. For that, I think you're getting a decently detailed-looking Batman, tons of accessories, and a display stand that you must definitely use when it comes to displaying this figure so that you're not, I know I keep saying it, so the figure doesn't fall over. Because again, he's got really small ankles. Chalk it up to just the nature of the way he's designed in the cartoon. He's going to have a big, broad torso, skinny little legs, skinny little ankles. All of that, of course, is going to contribute to a figure that's going to have a little bit more balancing issues, but that's why the display stand is there anyways. Again, once a big thank you once again to the folks over at Mondo that did provide this sample of the new reissue Batman Animated Series 6-scale figure of Batman that we could have a look at in this review. What do you guys think of the figure? Is this something you would like to pick up for yourself? And maybe did you get the chance and wanted to pick up the first edition and didn't get your chance, that you're definitely going to be more interested now to get the reissue? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content you're seeing and do want to stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. And though while we have wrapped up the review for Batman, the review, actually, of the animated series Joker 6-scale figure from also Mondo is right around the corner, so make sure you're staying tuned for that. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.